All right. So, what we be doing? We have an error down there. We are implementing animation system and skills. So we need to decide, and I'm a little undecided exactly how to treat this. Because I try to think about minimizing repetition, right? So, but the issue is, I think that when it comes to animations and the animation module, I think we really can't do that much. I think I've already done too much, maybe, when setting up the modules. But I think that was still for the best. Because here, the fact that I'm doing this right, I just I removed this part where I'm creating these this here. So here we have indices. And then we have to set up this, which I don't like either. But every character might have some kind of casting animation. You know, they won't, but they could. And that's why, and the same thing is true for everything here. Not every character will have run animations, but they could. Not every character will have dual animations, but they could. So I'm making dictionary entries for that, but I'm leaving the entry null. That way we can request the animation from a character, but yeah. But at the end of the day, these are all basic animations. And then here I've added combat animations. But in reality, for Rhea, the list of actions might be like 150. Because she's gonna have talking animations, sitting, standing up from sitting, you know, all kinds of shit. So That's why I don't really think that I can get too hung up about what can I reuse, what can't I reuse. But I think that it's good to have a basic set like this, so that for each like non-main character, we can just have a basic set. Because like a Nephir Spearman, most likely is just gonna have this, right? He might have something more, like a speak animation or something like that. Maybe a like surprised or something. But it's mainly just gonna be these things. In fact, they might, and I'm a little bit worried because I might have to change that later. In fact, I should probably add it right now. Because here, like, I have walk and run, but there's also a combat walk. Alright, be right back. But the way this works right now, right? It's all good if I add something later or whatever. I just have to shift this myself. Which means that we now have to manually sit here and do this. Maybe we can just insert. First time I've used insert in a real way, ever. So like that. And then here we have a walk. Because when it comes to the movement in combat, there are some tricky aspects about it. And I don't know exactly how it'll turn out. Because normally in like old school TRPGs, at least Japanese ones, you have more stylized graphics. Like you have kind of like chibi-iced, like small sprites. And what you can do then is you can just make them run while you move them at a slower pace than they're actually running. So it looks like, you know, they're traveling fast, but they're just moving like 2 squares, right? But I don't think we can do that in a way that it would look good. But at the same time, having just a walking animation might be slow. It might look awkward. We'll have to see how it ends up working. It might be fine, it might not. Might implement some kind of run, maybe. It really depends if we want to have some kind of system like that where you can like walk a certain distance and act, and then walk a certain distance and not act. I don't really like systems like that, though. Not that much. I don't really like hardline action economies. I prefer it when it's like an action takes X amount of turn, and that's what I'm implementing right now. Like an action takes X amount of AP. Let's say you have 10, you might have an action that costs 2 AP to use. Then you can walk in and you can use it. The issue with that is like, how do you handle multiple actions per turn? Do you just allow one attack? But I think I've kind of solved that too, but we'll see. And now we have the walk combat animation built in there. And another thing I could do here, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but like I could have, because all of these entries do eat up memory, right? But I don't think it matters at all. Like, it's just a key in a dictionary. How much data can that be? Like, nothing. So I'm not gonna worry about it. Animation update. So, now comes the hard part. I'm not 100% up for this today, but let's give it a go. So, we have the animation update here. Progressed animation time. And we have the base object. So I'm gonna do something like an animation module should have we have a current animation here, but I also want a public LOT animation that should say requested animation. And that's the first thing I want to implement here. Let's hide some of these, they're massive. progress animation time, right? So here is where I'm beginning to set animations. Now, the difficult part here is that we have to create a state tree that has correct prioritizations. But first of all, let's say if requested animation equals null, then we can play this code. And the idea here is that if a requested animation is set here, that'll overwrite anything else. Because I want to be able to tell an object to run an animation, and if it's running an animation, then it's doing that for a reason, such as a cutscene or whatever, and it should not be interrupted, unless it is told to be interrupted. So that's what this means. If there is no requested animation, then we run the animation script. Otherwise, we do play animation, which I think just sets the sprite. Which is a little bit misleading, I'll be honest. Progress animation time. Here we are using current animation. And that's fine. I think this is an error. Perhaps. I have to do else if current index plus 1 is less than current animation dot frames dot length, and because otherwise we might get to the end of the animation and it's just gonna say it's just gonna check outside the bounds of the array. Am I even handling this? I feel like I should have another else if current animation dot frames dot no. If current time is greater than animation length, this should actually be here. If current time is greater than animation length, let's do it like this instead. If current time is greater than animation length, if loop, then we do that. Else, if it's not a loop, then I kind of want a boolean, I think. That's just gonna say like end of animation or animation has ended. Now let's see if I already have something like that. Has ended. Right? I think that's a return too. Now, I think if this is true, we should set requested animation to null. Now the question is, what do we do after? And furthermore, I think that it should be a getter. So it should be like what am I building? We are making a tactics RPG. And right now I am trying to create an animation system. I already had one, but I need some changes. And I'm trying to make that work. Because I don't like using Unity's animation system. So the reason I need a getter and a setter is because if the requested animation gets set, I want to say base object dot I want to just reset the object. And that means public void reset. I don't know. It needs to reset maybe just one thing, but maybe more things. I'm just kinda wondering like what to call it. Reset. No, I think it's not as simple as that. Because the character, like an object that's in combat, in like the turn-based mode, it might need to have its position be modified without affecting the actual position of the character, right? So what that means is that I think what I need is a position modifier class. So that I can add a position modifier to a list inside of the object that's also referenced inside of the place that is modifying it, so that, for example, inside of the animation module, that might have its own reference to a position modifier that is inside of a list inside of the object, so that the animation can alter the position of the object at the same time as something else could also be modifying the position. For example, the unit is standing in one place during combat, and right now, the way it works, which is subject to change, the characters are moving to like face each other in the middle of the screen, and then they fight there. And that would be a position modifier, so it would keep its original position. And the combat system then adds a position modifier, where it then moves the character. And then like a combat animation might also move the character, because it might move the character like towards the other character when it's attacking. It would be easier to just make the animation be like the movement just be inside of the frames, that would be easier. But it also has less options for doing other things. Like, what if we have some kind of like counter where once the first hit lands, the other character like does a reaction attack or something which interrupts the rest of the animation? If I do something like that, then the character needs to have a position as the animation is playing. So I do think that would be the case. All right. I wonder if this is an opportunity to make an internal class. I don't really know what that means. C# internal class. Internal types or members are accessible only within files in the same assembly. What is an assembly? I'll be right back. Alright, let's keep trying. Hello, kids. I don't think this should really be much of a thing, but let's see, public. Okay, let's just try it. Public class, public. No. It's gonna be internal class position modifier. And that's gonna contain... I was thinking that it was containing something. I think it's just gonna be a vector 3 position modifier. Right. And then we need a public list of position modifiers. It's going to be called position modifier list. Okay. So internal and public are the same, right? Or rather, they use the same slot. It can't be public and internal. All right. Whatever, just make it public. I don't give a fuck. And then what this needs to do is reset position modifiers if position modifier list does not equal null, then position modifier list dot clear. That's actually not really a good way of doing it, but we'll do that for now. Because in reality, I would say that if it's gonna reset, then it should lerp back to the original position. It shouldn't just instantly be set. It could, though, but I don't think it should. Well, let's just do that for now. I'll get back to that later. Like, how would you do this? So here we do have position modifier, right? And it actually has a bunch of code. So it's not going to be that easy to actually do anything with this. Oh. How do you make a getter and a setter for a list? What you're working on? I'm working on fixing the animation system. And basically, before I was using a variable here called position modifier, so that if something animated the object, I could like retain the original position. So like if it got attacked, I could push it back a little bit, and I could do like a hit shake so that the character would shake and stuff like that. But it's not enough to just have one variable, because there might be multiple things that affect the character. So what I'm doing now is I'm implementing, instead of just having one modifier, I'm implementing a list. So I can have multiple modifiers so that the character can just be standing somewhere on the map, and then when combat is engaged, instead of like having to move the character somewhere, I can just add a position modifier that then moves the character over to where it should be. And then when combat happens, like if the character gets attacked or something, then I can just add a position modifier for that. The character gets pushed back by the attack. That way I can like reset the character back to different states, right? Like after being attacked, I can reset it back to combat state so that it's standing where it's supposed to there by just removing that position modifier. And then when I have the last position modifier, I can just remove that and we'll move the character back to the original position. But I don't know how to do what I'm doing with a list. But I think it'll be the same. Update, because every time you set or change the position, it needs to is this like that? That should be temp position. What am I doing? And here we have modified position, which is the position plus position modifier. Which is gonna have to change to... So what this should be is... If position modifier list does not equal null, or, well, and position modifier list dot count is greater than 0, then we'll say Vector 3 position pos modifier temp pos modifier equal vector 3.0 4 length is position modifier list dot count temp pos modifier plus equals position modifier list I dot position modifier, and then we're gonna return internal position plus position temp pos modifier. Else return internal position. And that should be irrelevant. Apply position modifier. Oh, right. Nah, I don't want to do that, do I? This is basically... This is used to, like, when I move the character temporarily, when you're in, like, the movement phase, and the character moves to the new position. This is that's basically a temporary position modifier as it moves there. And this finalizes it and applies it to the internal position. Which I guess is okay. But I'm just worried that there's gonna be like another modifier in there, and then that gets applied too, if I just go through this and apply every modifier. That's why I'm not a fan. And I'm kind of wondering if I should just have another... simpler position modifier. Call that like a preview or something. The positional system is a little overcomplicated right now. It does need to have the fat trimmed a little bit. But I don't think I have to worry about that right now. What am I even doing? Alright, fair enough. Let's put this in classes. Alright. How should I do hit shake? Do I want that to be a part of the position modifier list? Maybe? I'm not sure how to handle hit shake. Because it's one of these things where it's like kind of an animation, or it is an animation. So I would like to have it in the animation module. What if what if it's an entirely separate thing? Maybe. But I'm like, okay, should the modifier be in the animation module or should it be in the base object? Oh. Because the position modifiers are stored in the base object itself. So if the hit shake modifier is just a because it feels like if I move it to the base object, then I'm like moving things that are part of the animation system down into the base object. And I'm like not a huge fan of that. But I guess it's okay. Because it's really meant to be a part of the damage system as well. So it's kind of like, so if I just have it here, then when we try to read a position modifier, now this is the old one. When we try to read modified position, we get this, right? If position modifier list does not equal null, and we're going through all of this. And then we add the position modifiers, and then we'll also add plus hit shake modifier dot position modifier. Now, in reality, if this is only going to be here, then this just needs to be a vector 3, and that's it. And then down here, if we don't have any modifiers, we still need to do hit shake modifier there. This hit shake modifier should never be null. We do have to go to... Or do I have an init here? Initialize. Hit shake modifier equals vector 3.0. Position modifier, that doesn't exist anymore, but we do have position modifier list equals new list of position modifiers. Which also means that it can't be null. So a null check is kind of meaningless, but I guess it doesn't hurt to do a null check. What am I doing? Position modifier list. Right. Current dot unit dot position modifier plus distance to move. Not sure exactly how to handle this here. Distance to move. Well, what are we doing here? Move speed. We're handling the actual movement here, right? If distance to move. So I'm adding a distance to move thing here. Where is this used? Right. How do I handle this? I feel like I should move this into the object. This is just a movement script. And it shouldn't be part of the combat module. It should be part of the object. So what we need is a list. Public list. And the list should be I think we'll make a vector3 int. It's gonna be a little bit different than how it usually is though. Because usually when I handle like movement or stuff like that, I use a vector3, which means it's a float value, which means it has decimals and stuff. I use a vector3 to handle like moving normally. Let's say we're in like exploration mode and you're just walking around normally, that uses that. While when we're in combat, I use vector3 int, which is an integer which doesn't have decimals. And then I just use that to represent like tiles. So like we're standing on tile 42, 32 or something. And then we want to move to tile 45, 32. And that's how I'm handling that. But I actually think that targets, like if I want to move somewhere to a certain point, that should always use integers. Because we don't want characters to end up standing at like half positions. Like if you want to move to pixel 120, you don't want to end up at 119.99999999999. You want to end up at 120. And that's why it should be integer based when you have a target. Because otherwise you might end up with scenarios where the character might become like this deformed. Because that's just how it works when you render, really. And speaking of which, we have a bunch of positional values. And I don't really like the way it works right now. For example, we have internal position. I think. Yeah. Like internal position, that's underscore. And the way this should work is that you should have an internal position that's like the core. Whenever you move the character with like the movement keys, this is what gets updated. But here we're doing a set position thing. And here I'm setting a tile position every time. I don't like that. But I kind of need to anyway. Here we have a floored position. But I kind of don't like this approach in general. Or I don't like the naming. Is internal position without the underscore not a thing at all? I don't think so. Yeah, no, here we do have it here. It's the getter. So I want to rename this to internal position raw. And this should also be internal position raw. And then I want public vector reint internal position get return vector 3 int dot floor to int internal position raw. Oh, we can just underscore that because we're just reading. And the reason for this is that when you're moving the character around, you have to do something called delta timing, which means that you're modifying the speed of the object by the amount of time that has passed since the last frame. Because otherwise, if you have like a really fast CPU, it'll make the character move faster. If you have a slow GPU, it'll make the computer move slower. That's just how it works. Because it's like it's adding a certain value to the position every frame. And if you have more frames per second, it's gonna go faster. So you have to modify the value, and that means that there's always gonna be decimals. And because of that, you have to use floats internally to handle your position. But at the same time, you should never use that value as is. And this is something that most people who make pixel art games do wrong, where they just use the float value and then they just render it like that. You should always use an integer value, which represents the pixel grid, to do rendering and actual like final positioning. So like even if you're using Unity objects here, if you're making a pixel art game, you should first of all set the pixels per unit, the PPU, to 1 instead of 100. That way you can just set the transform position using the using integers. But like the final position of the game object should always be handled as like a final step. Every object should have its own internal float position, and then at the end of the update, the transform should be set using the floor to int value of your internal position. Otherwise, you end up with like weird glitches where things are standing in like half positions outside of the pixel grid, and that creates like bleed through if you're using like if you're using objects for certain like details on the map, that can make the object be like 1 pixel thinner because it's like it's like slightly incorrectly positioned. But the only way to show that something is like half a pixel off is to shrink like half of the image. And that way you get distortions and shit all the time. That's why when you render things, you have to do it using integers. Because it's the same as like trying to change the size of something that's like 1 pixel wide. Like this is just one sprite, right? And it can only move using pixels like this. So if you try to move it by half a pixel, it's the same as doing this. So now it's like you're cutting off part of the image. You can mitigate this by making your images be larger, but it'll still have the same thing. It'll just be less. And I guess that's what I'm trying to fix here, because it hasn't been set up properly. I mean, I have been doing it, but tile position unmodified. But it's also a little bit tedious here, because since I do need a tile position, check if tile is in world. Check movement related changes. Yeah. So like every time I move, I have to make checks. And this is something I don't like at all. Because what I would... Because you see, like, it's such a chore. To change the internal position. What am I doing? feel like this is also bad. The reason I don't like it is because whenever I do like a vector calculation using the tile size vector that I have here, it means that if I type like this, settings.variables.tilesize.x, settings_variables.tilesize.y, it means that it returns the entire vector every time. So it's doing like 9 times as much calculations as it needs, no, 3 times. As many calculations as it needs to every, and it's actually important here. Because this is every time that a character moves 1 pixel, this is updated. So it actually needs to be streamlined. So what I want to do now, the internal position actually has to be recalculated every time, even if it just moves like 0.01, like 1% of a pixel. Because that value might push it over. If there's like a position modifier on top of that, that might push it over to a new pixel. So here we're setting temp tile. But I feel like every time that check movement related changes. I think I want to change this. I don't know if I can, though. I think I can. Unfortunately, this is extremely complicated. Making even more coffee. Ugh. Static light source list tile position. Now, my question here is... does this need to be tiles? What is the limitation? Light index is an integer. No, I think it's fine the way things are. It's this that I could change. Because it would be the same. The thing that I'm doing here. Am I setting position or something here? Light source list. No, it's just using the floored position. Which, by the way, isn't even correct. It should be like modified position, but it should be an integer. That much is true. And here, what I'm doing is basically like this. So each character is assigned a value based on where they're standing with their feet. It's where the pivot point is. So for Rhea, it's like here. And based on which tile she occupies, she gets assigned to one of these zones. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So Rhea gets put into zone 1 here. And this is a way to speed up the drawing of light casting and shadow casting. So it's not perfect. It does have issues. But it is what it is. I think I'm gonna change it a bit. I'm gonna write that in the to-do here. Shadow and light casting should have maximum limits. Paper opacity down with distance. So then I have to decide what the distance is, right? And because the issue is this. Let's say Ria is standing here at the edge, and the sun is shining from like low. In that case, she's going to draw a shadow that's like really long. It could be like infinite range, to be honest. And the problem with that is that I can't check like every single pixel for Ria. So we have to decide how long is a shadow allowed to draw. And in this case, I'm going to say it's this. If Ria is standing in 1, her shadow can render in any adjacent. If she's standing in 6, it can render here, right? Which is already heavy, unfortunately. But it's a limitation that has to exist at minimum. I think right now what I'm even doing is I'm not sure. I think I'm basically checking, like, is she standing in the top right corner of her zone? In that case, we're doing these to like limit it further. If she's standing here, we're checking these. But she could be standing here, and like there could be a torch here, and then the shadow is gonna fall like that. And so I think technically speaking, it has to actually be like this, which kind of doesn't boil it down a lot. Like it's still basically the whole screen. Well, this isn't the whole screen. Like this isn't really true. This isn't representative of how large the areas are. But the areas basically limit the maximum distance of like how far can a shadow fall. And if there are more Rias standing like over here or over here, what this does is that it allows me to check when I'm rendering this pixel here, the pixel can check which zone it's in, and then we can check the zone and see, are there any objects in here that cast shadows? If that is 0, then we can skip the entire zone and we don't have to do anything. So that's the idea. But I had an issue where I was like drawing torches, like light from torches, using only like integers for size, where it was, you know, 1 tile per step, and that was really bad. But I think that's already solved. And this is part of what I'm working on right now. There are a lot of things I've written that kind of like handle themselves in too many ways, where they like handle positional data and stuff in their own way, and that's not good. Because anytime I have to like change something, now there's like too many things to rework. So that's what I've been doing with the animation system, the combat system, or the combat modules for objects, the animations themselves, and also with objects. I've been going over it, and I've been trying to create ways where like accessing data and reading things is more like centralized, so that we're not using like different values and different ways of doing things all over the place. And that still needs some more work. It's like how I'm handling positional data is, I think, a little overcomplicated. But it is complicated as well, so. Because, for example, right now, collision is based on tiles. Each tile type has a value that says is it a collider or not. So even when I'm moving around using non-tile-based positional values, every time I move one fraction of a pixel, I have to check and make sure that we're not walking into a tile that is collision. And that means that every time I move even one pixel, I have to recheck the tile value. I have to convert it into tile by dividing it by the tile sizes. And then I have to use that value to check against the tiles themselves. Which is unfortunate, but it's unavoidable. But I'm not sure I'm doing it in a way that I'd like. Because here I'm setting internal position raw, and here I'm using temp tile. These are modified positions. Because I kind of don't think I want to use the modified position. But I also kind of do. Because the modified position is still, like, important. Because even if the actual position moves internally, like, what if there is a position modifier for whatever reason? That position modifier might push the character over to being in, like, a different light area zone, which is gonna affect, like, how we handle rendering shadows and stuff. But I don't know, I don't understand why I'm doing this. Here I am basically checking if I've moved a tile or not. But I feel like it's pointless. I don't really understand why I'm doing this. But all that being said, I actually think that the internal position should never change while a position modifier is in place. Like, ideally. Because position modifiers are used in situations where the position modification is actually meant to be temporary. So I think I should actually, like, not do that. And then whenever I'm modifying a modified position, that's when we check the modified. I think that is smarter. Never move, never change the internal position while a position modifier is in play. Internal position needs to make checks for the light area buffer, and it becomes too complex if the position modifiers are involved. Make position modifiers do light area buffer checks when they make position alterations, position modifications, I guess. And this might break a bunch of things. So what we have now as well is we have a tile position value here. And the tile position also takes modified position into account. And I kind of want to change that. I want to set this to be modified tile position. Just like I have modified position, I want modified tile position. And vector 3 temp modified position equals modified position. And the reason I'm doing this is that, once again, this is a getter, so when I do modified position.x.y.z, it calls the entire vector 3 times, which is bad. And here now, we can say settings variables dot tile size, instead of dot tile size dot x, we can say tile size x. So I made it into integers. That way we only fetch 3 values. And I don't actually want to round it. So modified position. That returns a vector 3. But this should be a vector 3 int. Internal position raw plus temp position modifier plus hit shake modifier. Can you cast? No, but you can say or to int. Because the modified position is a final value. I think only the position modifiers, hit shake modifier, and internal position raw should ever be vector 3s. Because what I want to do with the hit shake modifier is I want to give it a momentum, I guess. So that whenever hit shake is added to the object, it just kind of handles the hit shake. And then it kind of fixes that on its own. So a modified tile position is subtracting tile size divided by 2. Tile position unmodified. Why would I ever need that? I mean, I guess this is for like actual logic, like combat logic. And this should be set every time the internal position is changed. But internal position modified, that's just a tile position modified. That's just a getter. So it actually needs to be public vector 3 int. Tile position unmodified. Initialize. It needs to be set to that first, so I can use .set. Actually, we don't need to do that. Tile position modified. Set. We can just make a check. Let's do it like that. Set. If tile position unmodified does not equal null. No, let's say equals null. Then we're gonna say tile position unmodified equals new vector 3 int. No. Vector 3 int. int.0. And then we're gonna say tile position unmodified equals value. And then internal position, tile position unmodified equals this. And this should then be value dot x dot y z This is another one of those things that are just a headache. Like, what is the position? Because your character has a size, so when you're setting the position, what is the position? Is it the bottom left corner? Is it the center? Is it at the pivot point? All of those things are like fine, but all of them create problems. Because then when you wanna convert it to like a tile position, if you have it in the bottom left corner, all you need to do is just add the top right corner by using its tile size value, right? That way you know which tiles it occupies. In our case, because we use more than one tile for like position, you can occupy more than one tile. But like if you use the center, then you have to subtract from like tile size and shit. Are you an Oblivion player? No. I don't want to play Oblivion. I played Oblivion again for like the 100th time in 2021, and I honestly don't want to play the game again. I've never played these games. Well, you'll probably have fun if you try them. I think all Elder Scrolls games are good in the beginning. Until you've played them more, they're good. So yeah, give it a try. I'm not gonna do it. Because I know I'm just gonna be raging the whole time. I have it free on Game Pass. Well, then it's not free. But yeah, I get it. Game Pass is good value. My girlfriend is paying? Wow. She's hooking you up. You should be paying for her Game Pass. I feel like something isn't right here. I'm gonna use this here. I pay for her Spotify? Wow, that's so romantic. Alright, so I'm changing the tile position on modified here. At least no OnlyFans fans is involved. That's good. That's good. Uh I kind of want to move this over to here instead, maybe. Tile position unmodified, so that's a setter. Ever heard of an old RPG, Bound by Flame? Yeah, I played it a little bit. But it felt really bad, so I didn't finish it. Like, the controls just felt off, so I didn't end up playing it, but... I'm also, like, ultra jaded when it comes to games, so... Don't take my opinion too harshly. Like, you're playing Oblivion for the first time. I have literally played Morrowind like 100 times. I played Oblivion like 60 times. I played Skyrim like 40 times. And I played the Elder Scrolls Online like 20 times. So, you know, your experience might be more okay than mine would. I've done nothing other than play video games in my entire life. Ready to choose backup options? No, fuck off. So what I'm thinking of doing here is, here I'm checking if the tile has changed, and then I'm doing the movement related changes thing. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to set the internal position, and then I'm going to set a tile position based on that value. And then in the tile position, where I'm setting that, I want to see, before I change the value, I want to say, if tile position unmodified does not equal value. So if this is a new value, then we'll do this. And unfortunately, what I'm doing now might end up with like giga amount of work, but it needs to be done. Check if tile in world, modified tile position. We're just gonna check value. That's what we're gonna set. If tile position does not equal value, we'll set it here, and then here we'll return, and then here will set the value if otherwise. I want to be a full melee two-hand weapon. What character should I take? It doesn't work like that. Like you can make can make any character and you can do anything with any character. As long as you just play the game on normal difficulty, you can maybe go up one difficulty, but the difficulty settings are atrocious. Like they're some of the worst difficulty settings you can imagine. So I strongly recommend just playing the game on normal. Because if you go up to master, what happens is that monsters do 5 times more damage, and they take 5 times less damage. So it turns like every single rat into the game into like a walking diamond golem that is unkillable. And it kills you in 2 hits. So as long as you just play the game on normal, it's fine. However, it depends on if you want to RP or if you want to just be OP, right? So in character selection, you can see the stats of every race in the game. If you want to have two-handed weapons, you need a race that has high strength. You can still play two-handed weapons with a race with low strength because you can increase your strength later. So, you know, you can just level up and get more strength. But you'll be behind, right? But there's, you know, there are more abilities than just, or there are more skills than just attacking. So it depends on what else you want to do as well. But if you want to specifically have a lot of strength, then Nord, Orc, Redguard. You can also play like, I think most have like decent strength. I don't know about, like, Argonians probably have okay strength. I think both Bretons and Imperials have okay strength. It's mostly just like Wood Elves, High Elves, Khajiit have like 30 strength or something. So it's not like that big of a deal. And they all have innate abilities and stuff. So that's why I say I think it's fine, no matter what you pick. It's just your starting stats might make you do less damage, because strength makes you do more damage with like strength-based weapons, while agility makes you do more damage with daggers and bows and shit like that. I don't remember the entire list. I always end up as a stealth archer in spite of my best efforts. It's because it's OP. Like, there's no reason to like ever engage in combat without stealthing and shooting them with an arrow first. Like, it's just free damage. So you just always end up with that. And then you just one-shot them, like, eventually. But, yeah. Either way, on normal, it's fine. If you're playing on Master, you have to min-max, you have to use every single potion and trick imaginable to make the game functional. Even on Expert, it's kind of like that. So, start on normal, then see what you want to do. But the game is the most fun on normal. It's just a chore on higher difficulties. It's not more fun or difficult or anything. It's just like you have to use more potions to get like strength boosts and shit. Poison your weapon and stuff like that every time. I think poisons might be bugged right now, I'm not sure. It seems like if you poison your weapon, it like doesn't get modified by the difficulty level. So you can just like one-shot things anyway with if you poison your weapon. I'm not sure if that is the case, but that does seem to be the case. 123 gigabytes. Yep, graphics are big. Yep. Just got back from work. But if you sleep, it's time for work again. Two days off already? Wow, I thought you had one more workday. Sometimes it's 2 on, 2 off, then 3 on, 2 off. Oh. I think this is right. We do 40 hours a week, but all the days are not the same. Every 6 weeks, my schedule can change. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. The hospital is one of the most volatile work environments. Especially when the government is involved, because they just keep, like, changing everything constantly. Hmm. I wonder how big of a deal it is to, like, not cache a vector. Wonder how I can test that. What game will you be streaming later? I'm gonna be playing Planet Crafter today. It seems okay. played it a bit yesterday. Not ideal, but it does seem to be playable for a while. I really like survival games. I might try some of the shitty... There are a bunch of shitty survival games on Steam right now. But they're all, like, actually shitty. Unfortunately. Can we find a game that has the actual tag? There. Dragon Wild's got you trying to find something better as a palate cleanser? Not exactly, but I mostly enjoy playing RPGs and survival games, to be honest. And there are no RPGs I want to play right now. All the ARPGs that I usually play are like... I'm tired of Last Epoch, to be honest. And Path of Exile 2 is just in beta. And they have like the week off until next week, mostly. They're probably like half-staffed at GGG right now, so like we're waiting for a patch to fix the bad patch. So it's like that's in limbo. And most survival games are like honestly worse than Dragon Wilds. Like, I think Dragon Wilds is really bad. But it's better than almost every other survival game. Because they're so bad. I might just buy this game because it's like 60% off. How long? 28. But like, I have so many of these games on my wishlist, and almost every single one of them has like mixed or negative reviews. This one just came out, but people say it's like super buggy. I might buy it and try anyway. Lord of the Rings, I might buy and try. It seems like mid. It doesn't really seem that interesting either. Lots of negative reviews. Raft doesn't seem that interesting. It's not really a theme I find interesting at all. I'll keep looking at an assess every time it pops up, but I'm just like put off by the graphics, I guess. Maybe it's okay. Don't know if it was here. Graphics update trailer. Oh shit. Play. Maybe. Project Zomboid is nice. It's okay. I just don't feel like I just don't feel like you have a goal in it. I feel like it's that kind of game that you have to like play it on a server with other people and with friends for it to be fun. So just playing it single player is kind of pointless. Because it's like barely a survival game. And there's like nothing to do in it other than just like get a car and work on it or something. So like I don't hate Project Zomboid. I think it's a cool game. But I do think it needs like 10 patches of content. Project Castaway. See, this is what I mean. On wishlist, mixed. Winter Survival, mixed. Nightingale, on wishlist, mixed. SS does seem maybe I'll try it. Asuka I also want to try, but I think this game is gonna be like you don't really do anything in it. Try one. The thing is, when a game has mixed on Steam, it doesn't mean that it's like maybe a niche game that someone might enjoy. It means that it's a fucking trash fire that like doesn't work and crashes every 6 seconds. That's what mixed means. Stone Shard is another game that's also on my wish list that I'm like, maybe I'll try this at some point. Scum is pretty bad. That's just a pure multiplayer thing. And it says it's like ultra cheap right now. I will give it that. It's actually cheap normally. I might buy it. Try that. There's the... what is it called? Called like Dark... The Long Dark. That's Canada Survival. I've been meaning to try this game when they finished releasing all the patches. I don't know if they have. Announcing The Long Dark 2. Well, does that mean you finally released all of the chapters? It's Finnish, I think. I think you're like actually literally in Canada. I'm not sure. It feels like it takes place in Canada. Yeah. Bush pilot Will Mackenzie and Dr. Astrid Greenwood are separated after their plane crashes deep in the northern Canadian wilderness, in the aftermath of a mysterious flash of light in the sky. This is Canada Survival. But is there an actual game called Canada Survival? No. There isn't. The Long Dark is another game I could play. Vancouver Island in British Columbia? What? I mean, there are multiple chapters. Maybe they crash land in different places. Or do you mean the, where the company comes from? I don't know what we're talking about. Okay, so what did I want to test? I wanted to test static vars, static class, and here we're gonna have a public static vector 3 tests vector equals new vector 3 10 10 10. And then we go to start and we're gonna say debug.log test1, and here we're gonna say 4 100,000 might be good. And then I want to say vector 3. Well, I do have a test vector up there. Test vector equals new vector 3 0 0 0. And then here I want to say test vector equals new vector 3 I divided by static vars dot test vector dot x I divided by static vars dot test vector dot y I divided by static vars dot test vector dot z. And then we do that, and then we say debug.log test1 execution time, and then I'm gonna say static vars public static float test vector x equals 10f. This is y, this is z. And then we're gonna say time 2 equals 0, time 1 equals time dot real time since startup. And then we're gonna do the same thing here. Except this is now like that. And then here we're gonna say we'll do the same thing again. Does this make sense? There's literally no difference. So is this something I don't have to worry about at all? The compiler just kind of solves this issue. Or am I testing this incorrectly somehow? I think it doesn't matter. What if we do it a million times each? Wait, did I not save? Yeah, it's the same. So I don't really need to care. This is, I think this one is actually faster, but it's by such a minuscule amount that it literally does not matter. But I could still do it anyway. Like, but I barely remember where I was anymore. Modified tile position. That's the tile position based on the modified position. The modified position has to be I think using a getter, though, would be different. Because the value of the getter could, like, technically change between reading the X and the Y value. So therefore, I kind of assume that as opposed to, like, fetching a vector, though that the vector could also technically change. But I think it doesn't matter. It's such a minuscule calculation that it doesn't matter. So is this okay? Is this correct? Get modified tile position. We're getting that shit. I think modified tile position should never be set. I don't know why I have a setter. That should never be set. It should only be get. have a syntax error here somewhere. Oh, it's this. Is this. I don't remember what I was adding here. This is a list of vector 3 ints. I don't remember. I think this was meant to be I'm gonna call this movement waypoints. Because we have distance to move. No, it's not here. But that's what this is supposed to be. So the way I want to handle this now is that instead of here, distance to move, instead of this being handled here, I want this to be handled in the object. But the tricky part is this is meant to be like combat update. Right? Like this is combat update. So it's the current unit that needs to do what it needs to do. So in the combat module, like it would be easy to just write in the object code to handle like moving alongside or along like a path or multiple paths and just following that. The issue is the fact that only one object is allowed to do that at a time, more or less. So, and because of that, it becomes difficult to have the object do what it's supposed to do. If I just run like every object's combat update in a row, then there needs to be a way for the main script to tell the combat scripts or the combat objects which one is like currently allowed to do anything. And the way I was doing that was just by having the main script handle the movement itself. So it's like, okay, right now it's we're like doing movement in the combat phase, so it's just the logic is just gonna be handled here inside of the main combat phase movement, where like I'm just moving the current unit X distance, etc. And this works, but I don't know if I like it. Because I would prefer to have stuff like this be contained within, you know, because I have to go into the unit and like extract information from all over the place. So it would be nicer if I could just send like waypoints to the object, and then it'll just move along those waypoints. And then when it's done, it like reports back like, okay, I'm done moving. We can move on to the next phase. But doing that is also complicated, because now you have to still keep track in the main script that like an object is currently doing something, so like nothing else is allowed to do something. But I could use the current turn.unit to do that, for example. Because it would be in the combat. If I do it in the combat module, it makes more sense to me. Because then the combat module could check like, is current unit in combat like the unit that I'm attached to? And if it is, then we'll handle that. But because there is a reason as well why I'm not like a huge fan of the way I'm doing it here now. Because I don't think it would work that well to do that for us. But it's not like impossible. But like one way you can do things is if you have a turn-based game, and let's say that even if it's not like team-based action where like your entire team acts and then the entire enemy team acts, I don't like that. It creates like too much of a burst scenario. It becomes hard to like deal with things like incoming damage and stuff. But if you have like a system where each team moves and then like your team move, the enemy team moves, what you can do is you can move the entire enemy team in one go. You just calculate where are like what is the AI going to do, and then you give them like movement targets, and then you just execute that, and like every single zombie on the screen moves at the same time, and then they attack. It saves like infinite amount of time. But for us, it's not team-based, right? So it's you attack, and then it's maybe an enemy's turn, and then it's like another one of your character's turn, and then maybe there are like 3 enemies in a row. And furthermore, there might be like conditionals, like maybe if you like maybe the enemy has a knockback attack, right? And that's what he's planning on doing. Then if I move in a bunch of units, and then like the third, like there are 5 units moving in, and then the third unit knocks back one of the enemies or one of your units, now like is unit 4 and 5 out of range now, so that like their movement was just wasted. You know, it creates a lot of difficult things to solve. You can, however, pre-calculate all the outcomes. Like if there is if one unit is gonna knock something back, then you can plan that out, and you can be like, okay, this unit is going to knock somebody back, therefore we stop after that, and then we execute that, and then like the next 2 units execute after that. Something like that. So like it's not a solution I'm like a huge fan of, even though I do like it. But there are situations that it could be a problem, because I do think like knockbacks and like positional changes and stuff like that are important to have, because it adds a big layer of complexity. It adds a big layer of additional problems to solve, though. Alright. I think that's gonna be it for today. I didn't feel like taking a break, so I was just pushing past that. It's almost 4 hours. Um... Even online? No? Alright, well, we'll stream some Planet Crafter in a bit. Until then, thanks for hanging.